You know, protective orders are something that are used quite often in Utah. A lot of people have a lot of questions about them, so I thought I would address some of those questions today. Travis Christiansen talking today about protective orders. Now, a protective order, there's some requirements that have to be met. As a general rule, they have to have been a cohabitant. You have to have lived under the same roof as someone for there to be a protective order. Now, there are some dating violence protective orders that are relatively new. We haven't seen very many of those, at least I haven't in my office. But protective orders, typically, there has to have been some type of cohabitation, and there has to have been some domestic violence, some acts of violence between the person asking for the protective order and the respondent, or the person whom the protective order is against. They are typically done, the procedure that's typically followed is you ask for a protective order without the other side having a chance to respond. If the court finds that there is enough to issue the protective order, on at least an initial first look basis, the court will issue it, and then it will be served on the other side with a notice of a hearing. These hearings typically happen within a couple of weeks. So if you file for a protective order, you better be ready to have witnesses available if you need them to show up at a hearing really very soon. If you are served with a protective order, the same thing. That is the date that the court has set aside to take evidence on your case. Again, there is a burden of proof. The burden of proof remains on the petitioner who's asking for it at that hearing to set evidence as to why it should remain in place and why they need those protections. The respondent needs to show why it doesn't, shouldn't be issued, and that person doesn't need those protections. I will tell you, my experience has been that more often than not, judges tend to grant these. I think one thing that might keep a judge up at night is if someone had asked that judge to issue a protective order and they didn't, and something happened to that person. That's something I don't know that a judge is going to want to have happen on their watch. So I think most of the judges that deal with these kinds of orders are predisposed to grant them simply because they don't want to be, the judge that didn't grant it, and then the person that had asked for it, something bad happened to them. So one of the difficult things sometimes with protective orders is there are some parts that last years and other parts that only last 150 days. I have seen protective orders abused in the custody context, where someone can go in and get someone removed from a house, get custody of the kids really quite quickly without the other side having much say or a real opportunity to defend themselves. The other issue sometimes with protective orders is they do, like stalking injunctions and some other things, implicate some civil rights. If there is a current protective order against you, as an example, usually you're not allowed to be in possession of a firearm. So keep that in mind. If you have any questions, please feel free to give us a call. If you're involved in a protective order situation, my advice, have an attorney help you. Hope this has been helpful. If you've got any other questions, put them in the comments. I'll respond as quickly as I can.